10 new Apple products leak, and I can't wait to buy them.
Welcome to the All Future Podcast, where we talk all things Apple, tech, AI, robots throughout the week. If you're enjoying these videos, we really appreciate you watching. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd appreciate a subscribe. It helps us know that people are watching and interested and keep making these videos. And today we're talking about 10 new Apple products that have leaked. And the first one is one that I think Matt has cast a lot of doubt on in the past. So I'm excited about this one. This is AirPods with infrared cameras. Well, I should have just said this is AirPods with cameras.
Yeah. You gotta like really hit me with it before I can like save face slightly.
So this is AirPods with cameras, which you have vehemently opposed.
Well, it just seems crazy to me in the way that it was pitched in the rumors before this.
Yeah,
and that it was this idea of some kind, like a camera on AirPods. What we think of as cameras,
like the end of the stem cameras that are seeing your environment at all times.
Yeah, like this crazy cyberpunk looking thing coming out our ears. But I guess what it actually is something that makes a lot more sense, and that is an IR sensor, which I suppose is technically a camera, and that is absorbing light rays, but not in the visual spectrum here. This is something meant to help with orientation and it's got a tech reason to exist, not something for you to take pictures of your friend's birthday party.
Yeah, apparently it's going to enable better head tracking specifically for spatial things on the Vision Pro, which I'm curious why they would make such a big change to AirPods for the Vision. And I've used AirPods Pro plenty with the Vision. It seems like plenty for me, so there must be some future thing that they're working on that is a lot better here. But what are your thoughts there?
I got a thought.
You do?
I got a thought. Maybe this will redeem me from saying there will never be cameras on there. So I was saying about the same thing. I was like, well, what? For one, I don't think you need an IR sensor for some kind of audio reason on it at all, right? It's got to be some reason it's feeding the headset for a purpose, right? And if the recent rumors are to be believed, that Apple is abandoning the Vision Pro and working on the Vision Lite, Vision SE, whatever they call it, a cheaper version of their AR headset, how do you do that? Pull out sensors from it and say, but if you pair it with the new AirPods Pro, it actually adds some more capabilities to it.
Yep.
So it lets you sell a cheaper one for people who don't need good head tracking. But if you want it, you can buy this add-on.
That's probably exactly.
Is that it? Did I just nail it?
I think that makes a lot of sense because, you can get the Vision Pro or Vision Lite, and maybe it has like kind of not very good audio, and then it doesn't do a certain level of tracking like you're talking about with audio, but it exists in its basic form, and they can still maintain a good screen. Is what I'm hoping. And then instead you buy the $300 or $400 maybe AirPods that are designed for the Vision Pro, and then the interface and adds to it, kind of like Watch with Phone. That same extension.
Yeah, it makes a little bit. It makes a product you already have a little bit better. It allows people who don't want to get all the bells and whistles to still get into the space. And I imagine what Apple's thinking is that if we can sell these headsets for cheaper, once people see how cool it is, they'll want the upgrades. They'll want that better stuff. So it'll actually, it'll just feed itself into the money printing machine over there at Apple and help the whole system out.
Yeah, it still can. I don't think any amount of accessories from an Apple Vision Lite could add back up to $3,500, but it seems like that's how they could do it. They could get you to pay close still, but they just separated it into a bunch of products.
For sure.
But apparently the rumor there is like $1,500 for the Lite is what they're like aiming for right now. So you could see you're getting closer to $2,000 with AirPods. I like this idea. But some people, it's interesting. I'm curious, people watching this, do you like spatial audio and do you use it? I use it all the time if I'm using like my iPad and watching a show, or even the Apple TV, because I like that I turn my head and it feels like it's coming from the TV. But our producer, Andrew, is a big music guy. He's in a band called Robert John and the Wreck. If someone out there is probably listening to them right now. And he turns off spatial audio, I think entirely, but he really doesn't like it for music. What is your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts?
Interesting. I could see that, but I guess the thing is, a ton of stuff now is mixed for spatial, which I think helps out a lot.
Yeah.
I guess if I say a ton of stuff. There's probably the vast majority of music is not, I guess, but most new music that comes out, they have it's a mix for spatial. Old stuff, obviously, probably better listen in stereo if you're some kind of purist.
Yeah.
I would argue, though, if you're that guy, are you using AirPods here, right? Are you not using some much nicer kind of stereo thing if you're a real audiophile? I also get the idea of it's somewhat disorienting maybe in certain circumstances. I do question sometimes whether the sound is coming from my AirPods. I'll do the thing where if I don't want to disturb people, I'll watch a movie at home with my AirPods in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, let me crank this volume. And it's some like action movie and it's all loud. I'm like, wait, is this coming? Am I blasting this through the house right now and don't know it? So I always double check to make sure that it's actually the AirPods. So I get that. But I think in most cases, I think people like spatial audio. And if anything that adds that and makes it cooler, I think it's cool. So.
Yeah. It's also quite interesting how vital this technology is for the Vision Pro. So to see them having been working on this for a long time, and now it makes total sense in the Vision Pro. And now maybe they're splitting it off in some way. But we gotta get going here. We have 10 things.
We're running out of time already, man.
Next is smart glasses patents. There's apparently 3 smart glasses patents this week or recently. And Apple, it's really just showing us a bunch of different signs of all the ways that they're having to work on little things for their future Apple glasses. And the first one is a stretchable display, which I guess is just necessary for whatever the form factor of glasses would be. And maybe they could wrap it around edges is what it's kind of looking like. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that's for your peripherals in glasses, so it can add more there. And the second one is an adjustable arm mechanism. Pretty seemingly basic, it seems, and then a system with position sensors. So all of these little patents, I might not even be nailing all the details, but they're all just the little things that enable this technology. And you've talked a lot about Apple patents in the past and how this may mean something or it may not, right?
Yeah, I guess if we play the odds, it means nothing. Most things Apple patents never come to fruition in the way that they are patented. Because they are, a lot of times they are kind of protecting themselves from these kind of patent troll people that will patent things and then all of a sudden Apple has to pay them a quarter of a penny for every iPhone sold or whatever it is, something like that. But with this is at least looking at the problems we've talked about here on this podcast. If you're going to make a true smart glasses, like the thing we're thinking of, the cool sci-fi thing that are lightweight, long battery life, great screen, just regular glasses that have access to all human information and can display stuff in front of my eyeballs. You need stuff like this type of polymer composite stretchable screen thing that they're talking about in here.
Yeah.
And the other things they talk about with just kind of the things that construction of glasses and how it could work. I think this is what Apple wants to. This is what everyone wants to make, right? This is what Google tried to make with Google Glass 8-9 years ago, whenever it was at this point. It's what Snap tried to do with Snap glasses, even. Like, it's what Meta's trying to do with their glasses. This is what everyone's trying to do. I think the big takeaway from this, though, when you look at this, is that this isn't even close to making into a product yet. Like, these are very much technical patents on concepts. These aren't, here's this final thing that we're making. These are like, here's ideas on how these components of this thing could work. Best case, probably 3-4 years out. Best case, I would imagine even further, because there's so many other technical limitations to have to solve. Namely, the battery situation, I think, is the biggest thing they're going to have to figure out. And none of these patents really even address that at all. So, yeah, cool stuff. I think it just shows what we've already known, that Apple, along with every other tech company, is trying to make some cool AR, AI glasses.
Yeah. So that does bring us directly to number 3, which is that the Apple Glass product is delayed. And I'm going to go with Apple Sapphire because there's basically no way they're going to take Google Glass and just put Apple in front of it, right?
Not gonna call it Glass,
So it's Apple Sapphire. We'll make this happen. And we're potentially not seeing them till 2026 or 27 is the current rumor. And like you said, 3-4 years. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even further than that.
That seems optimistic even.
Yeah.
Because, well, I'm sure in the lab they can make something like this that works fairly well. Like, to make it a product, there's a lot of challenges there. I mean, I mentioned the battery thing already, the durability problem you're going to have.
Yeah.
The social acceptance problem you're even going to have with these things, right? Like, there's so many things to work through before they're actually going to sell this. I think this 26, 27 date even seems optimistic to me.
Yeah.
You know?
So as of right now, it seems like they're not going to be competing with the Meta glasses in their form as they are right now. They're going to do a very Apple approach here. Wait until the technology is good and proven out from other people as well, and then give us a product that actually makes sense. Or at least maybe the first version is very expensive and doesn't make sense for a lot of people, but it's impressive, like we're seeing with the Apple Vision. Okay, so next, iPhone 16 updates. There's going to be a new display, but apparently it's the same screen as the Pixel, which somewhat proves a little bit of point about screens.
that no one cares about them. Is that
Yeah,
is that the point?
that's kind of the point.
I was like, what's your point going to be? Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's cool.
Do you have an OLED TV?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course, man. Come on.
Yeah.
If you're someone who cares about movie watching, right? And obviously they have all these kind of, I don't know, like different flavors of it you can get now. Like
Yeah,
QD
QLED,
OLED,
yeah.
all these kind of things. Mini LED is kind of another, like an alternative.
This is mini LED.
Yeah, there you go. So,
So I wouldn't have burn. That's why I got it.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see?
very cool.
Smart.
So working already. No burn on the slowly moving blue background we put on this thing
Exactly.
once a week. I mean, OLED's amazing. OLED is a great display technology.
Yeah.
The true blackness of OLED is very, very, very cool. And that's what sells it for me, right? Like this idea, the actual blackness of it, and it's not actually emitting light in the black ranges like every other display technology in history has done. So love that. Love it on my iPad. Too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, it's on my iPad Pro, the thinnest product Apple has ever made, with the best display. They said that too, I think, in there. It looks great. I probably don't notice it on the iPad as much. I think I'm just not. It's not like I'm watching a lot of movies and things on the iPad. Like I don't really like. I'm looking for that quality of a screen. It just doesn't jump out as much as it does on, say, a TV. I feel like on the phone, it's at this point. Once Apple made what they marketed as the Retina display, so a super high pixel density phone, everyone kind of forgot phone display technology, right? Because that's the real thing that put it over the edge. Like to stop seeing the kind of pixelization of it, that's when the average consumer, I think, went, great. That you don't need to make it any better than this. I love this. That being said, I would love, for me, and I'm probably a much more weirder person, but I would love higher quality displays on it that really do get to a true dead black. Like that'd be great. Occasionally have a little trouble sleeping. I'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and my favorite thing to do is go on Wikipedia and look at the this day in history. Like I don't know why, but I love doing
That's
that.
cool.
Probably once or twice a week. I do that like 3
No
in
wonder
the
you know
morning.
so much.
Yeah, that's it. That's you'd be surprised the number of Apple facts that are on this day in history Wikipedia. But it is in dark mode and everything. But I was like, oh man, this thing could be darker. like this thing could get way blacker than this. Where I literally only see kind of the white text and like everything else is true black. That'd be cool. But I guess these things are going to be on the Pixel phones too, the same display. It also, we've talked about this before too, about how all these companies that are kind of in competition are also all sourcing the same suppliers and buying things from each other. So
reportedly, this is the Samsung M14 OLED display.
of course
And it's
it is.
brighter, longer lasting. That's what the iPhone 16 is going to have, but other phones are going to have it as well. Interesting.
Cool.
So, also for the iPhone 16 is reportedly coming a new battery replacement technology or a new battery replacement method from Apple. And this is coming as a result of the EU, who is making stricter requirements for battery replacement methods on phones. It needs to be easier to replace it, essentially. So, Apple is kind of, I guess, inventing some sort of new technology that is going to make it easier to replace batteries on the iPhone 16.
Their new technology they're inventing is just better design and easier to get to screws, I think.
I think so, yeah. Just moving the engineering around slightly.
Moving things slightly,
Yeah.
but I'm sure they'll tout it as a revolutionary new design or something, yeah.
But it does kind of point to the fact that these Apple products already last a long time, and then if you can replace the batteries, it helps them last even further. So Apple is probably going to need to be charging for things software-wise like Apple Intelligence in the future.
No, that's an interesting way to think about it. I would say that I have never really had the battery issues with the phone things that people talk about until recently. I would say in the last month or so, and it's because I didn't upgrade my phone.
Yeah, it's
because
you didn't have
I'm
change it out every
I've
year.
always been a jerk who has bought a new phone every year, so I've never had battery degradation. And now all of a sudden, I think my battery life it's like upper 80%. I think it's like 87 percentile or something is the
I'm gonna check mine.
No, okay, let's do it.
Battery health and charging, 84%.
84%.
Yeah.
Let me see what I got. 86%.
Wow.
Is what I'm at right now. So, yeah. So and that's a noticeable difference. I used to never really think about charging my phone at all.
Yeah.
Like I was like, it's when I charge it when the charger's around and don't care. You lose that 15%. All of a sudden, when I would normally be at that 15 to 20% battery life and go, I need to charge my phone. Now my phone's dead.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh man. So making it easy to swap batteries makes a lot of sense to me.
That should be a cool thing for consumers, but yeah, it does point to that thing where Apple, it's going to be a little easier for customers to keep their phones for longer, so they're going to need to make reasons for you to upgrade. But next is Apple Watch 10 or Apple Watch X. And this leak is unfortunately not very exciting. We've been talking all about the Apple Watch, I guess, Series X. It's like the 10 version. It's the big refresh. It was supposed to have a big design overhaul. I think it was supposed to be the biggest redesign yet. It was going to be a lot flatter compared to the current Apple Watch. And there were going to be size changes. And now, reportedly, there's been leaked images that kind of just show it's a pretty normal Apple Watch.
Yeah, it just I think the rumor right now is they still have those larger sizes, but the design is not really changing at all.
Yeah.
Bummer, man. Bummer. Like Apple, I want to buy a new watch, man.
Yeah.
I want to buy a new watch, but my watch now like functions good enough. I don't feel like I need whatever new sensors they're gonna put in it, really. So without having that new design, I don't know if something's going to entice me. And I know this is incredibly superficial, it's like, but that's what would really convince me. Like if all of a sudden it came up with some cool new look, I would be like, oh, that would get me excited about it, rather than the thing that feels and looks the same as my old watch, except it has these new capabilities. I'm like, that doesn't excite me every day to put it on. Like that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that little bit of magic, a little like pep in my step when I like put on my new watch and feel really good about it. So yeah, it doesn't really surprise me that much, but you know what, let me change that. Never mind. I'm gonna say it does kind of surprise me. If you look at this historically, the Apple Watch has not changed form factor significantly since launch. You include the Ultra as maybe a different line or something like that, but just the regular Apple Watch essentially looks the same.
Yeah, just smaller bezel.
Yeah, the bezel change, and then they changed the sizes up a little, but they still worked with the old band system, so it really didn't feel that different. This might be the longest Apple has maintained an overall design language on a product ever. Like I'm trying to think of something that hasn't altered significantly within 10 years, and I can't think of anything. Like everything has changed significantly, and some things have kind of reverted back to old designs or used elements from different designs, but there's been many iterations. I mean, look at the iPhone lineup, right? It's while they they have callbacks and like do different things, like it changes pretty significantly. iPads have changed significantly. Obviously the MacBooks, Macs, iMacs, nothing has kept a similar design for that long as the Apple Watch. So this is kind of surprising that they wouldn't just make it, just change the look. How many more would they sell if they gave it like a flat top or something,
Yeah, definitely. Apparently, due to complexity, it's pushed back to at least 2025. So that might mean we're hanging on to our Apple Watches for another year, but we'll have to see.
So rocking our dinosaur, whatever, Series 6 Apple Watches, whatever we have, yeah.
But maybe they'll convince us with some sort of Apple Intelligence feature built in. We'll see. But one thing that has been kind of interesting is this idea of the double tap that they added to the Apple Watch with your fingers, and being able to do that with Siri. That's another thing that people are talking about this week.
That seems cool, I guess. Raise to Siri has always seemed like pretty effective system to me. And what's funny with that double tap feature, how that was in the iPhone for years, just in the accessibility.
Like on the back, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I said iPhone, but it was on the watch too.
Oh, yeah.
You would add, it was just under accessibility. And then they made it like a frontline control feature, and announced it as this new thing. And they really just changed how you enable it.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know it until the event. And I was like, that's cool. And one of the people I was watching with, it's like, dude, your watch already does that. I'm like, what? Like, and they're like, oh, it's in accessibility. That's how you turn it on.
Classic,
yeah. So I was like, oh, have been tricked by Apple again and thinking something is fancy and cool. That seems neat though. Whatever. That's cool. The double tap to activate Siri probably makes sense in some scenarios where it's inconvenient to raise your hand.
Yeah.
You got something in your arms or something. I don't know. There's a lot of different, for accessibility stuff for some people, right? There could be difficulty for them raising their arms. So cool.
Yeah, definitely. Another one now is Apple Maps, which I'm learning more and more how many people use Apple Maps.
Get on board, buddy. Get on board.
I know. I didn't
switch over.
I didn't entirely recognize it. I'm starting to use it more and more because I mean some of the like share ETA, like all those features that are built in, it's
cool, man.
It's really nice. But anyways, they kind of announced some of this at the event, but we are actually seeing it come to be, which is the ability to have more hiking trails with a lot more information there within Apple Maps, and then the ability to download maps offline. So if you're going out of signal, which you probably are doing if you're doing hiking trails, or if you're out of the country and just unsure of what your connectivity is going to be, this is very nice.
Yeah. I used to, years ago now, I guess, when I would travel internationally and it was be more difficult to get international SIM cards and things like that, I would take screenshots when I had good Wi-Fi of like maps of areas I was going to, like just in Google Maps at the time. So that way I could pull it up and just, actually just use a map as a map and not like,
Yeah.
But now, offline maps have become a huge thing since then. Hiking trail stuff, cool, man. I guess, it's been a long time since I've done any real hiking where I need to see like topographic information, which is the cool thing about these is actually showing contour lines for topographic stuff. Most things I hike now are just trails in north of Los Angeles, which are, essentially roads. Like this is not real hiking. This is just walking on the dirt. But a lot of people would probably be into this out there. So it seems like an easy thing to enable. So cool.
Yeah, definitely. So the next rumor comes for the MacBook Pro, which is another line that is apparently not getting a refresh, kind of like the Apple Watch 10, at least design-wise. And a refresh here is delayed at least a couple years or a year or so. What people are talking about is that this design has basically stayed the same since about 2021 on the MacBook Pro. So Apple is just sticking with this kind of as they focus in on all the stuff around the product itself. So they're focusing in on Siri, they're focusing on AI stuff, which is Apple intelligence, not artificial intelligence, and all of these different things. So we're not apparently going to see a major refresh until 2025 or 26.
This makes sense to me. This isn't that crazy. Like this, not nearly as crazy as the Apple Watch at 10 years not getting a major refresh. If you're looking at 4 years between design refreshes on a MacBook, that kind of works out. And we were saying earlier, in another video, I would like the more flat design from the iPads in MacBook. 'Cause I love picking up my iPad Pro, man. Like it's so cool. It feels so great that just like flat on flat, parallel square that it is. Like I love that. And I would like that. I think of a MacBook like that would be very cool. And it's not that technically hard to make a MacBook that's just a little thicker than the iPad Pros are. It's travel distance for the keyboard is what is your concern, because the screen and the computer space, that's already solved in the iPad essentially.
They have great speakers too.
Yeah, exactly. So you could make it just a little thicker with that super flat design. I think that'd be pretty slick. I'd be into that.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of displays, last up, number 10 is a Vision Pro Air with cheaper displays, or Vision Pro Lite. Basically what we were talking about earlier, the rumors here are that Apple is not going to be going for another version of the Apple Vision Pro, but instead they're going to make one with cheaper displays. So they're looking to supply lower quality displays for this currently, and they have an interest in larger OLED panels that are lower resolution, which I'm interested if larger actually means it gives you a larger field of view. Because it does box you in a little bit on the Apple Vision. The field of view isn't as good as it could be, but that's because they're covering where you're looking as opposed to
peripheral.
Yeah, and that's kind of unnecessary, and the technology is so expensive enough to have these OLED displays. I'm curious if that's what this is with talking about larger OLED panels there. But the lower resolution is definitely disappointing. But I'll have to see what Apple does here. Maybe they figure some way out to convince us.
Yeah, what is? I don't know what the resolution What's the lowest you could make the resolution and not see pixels? Right? That's really the question. Is that like, can you, and could you do some kind of trickery to make the pixels less obvious? Some kind of pixel blending or blur technology or something like that. I would say that every time we bring up the Vision Pro, you as the resident Vision Pro user, Vision Pro user, yeah, you always say the display is one of your favorite parts. Like that's literally, you're like, the display is incredible. And I've only used it a couple times. I will say when I did use it, the display looked great. So it seems to me if this is the thing your customer base is excited about, and I don't think you're unique in this and saying that the display is great, a little bit of a risk to alter that.
Yeah.
And not maybe pull out other things that you could pull out to save money or weight or whatever.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see. They obviously have to bring down cost, and it makes a lot of sense that it's the highest resolution we've seen in a headset. So, of course, that's what is making this thing so expensive. But, yeah, that it seems like they have to solve it. They have to bring down cost, but they also need to keep that feature because that's like the flagship feature of this thing. And I would be really curious to know because it's right here. I know it's like 4K TVs. You don't really need an 8K TV in most scenarios.
Most people don't need 4K TV. I think the distance to notice pixels is like 5 feet or something like that. Most people have their TVs further away than that.
Yeah.
So like most people, like 4K is a ripoff for most things. Like.
Yeah, but when it's here on your eyeballs, then of course you're going to distinguish that. So yeah, that would be really interesting to learn, and maybe they'll figure something out. It'll be some sort of thing, hopefully better than like interlaced HD back in the day. But yeah, those are the 10 leaks we have from Apple this week. A lot of exciting stuff, and then some stuff that's like, oh man, that's delayed. But it seems like a lot of this is because they're so focused on Apple Intelligence, and once that's delivered and like really shining, we'll probably see refreshes of products.
I would argue that if when they decide to make this move on Apple Intelligence, they probably went to every product manager and they said like, hey, kind of pump the brakes on whatever you're doing right now because we don't know how this thing is going to play out. And let's say you're the guy in charge of redesigning MacBooks or redesigning Apple headsets or whatever they are, and you're like, oh, are we going to decide to put dedicated Apple Intelligence buttons on these things? Are we going to what are people do we need to figure out a dedicated display system for Apple Intelligence? There's all this kind of stuff that like it would kind of make you rethink your roadmap if you're going to make this kind of seismic shift and it works.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. And I think it's going to result in better products.
Definitely.